there wasn't much else to do around the outcast village. These people didn't have much, and they certainly weren't going to play Pazaak with me, so we decided to peace out and head out into the Undercity and see what we could find.
Please, you have to help me.
But almost immediately
Nobody
after we
else
exited
can
the
help
gate
me.
again,
Even
we
the
found
Backs
Mission.
won't help me. But I can't
She
just
was
leave him there. He's
popping off about apparently Zaalbar had been grabbed by some Gamorrean slavers in the sewers, and we were more than happy to help. But luckily she made a deal. I'll get you inside the Vulkar base in exchange for finding Zaalbar with me, and she was more than happy to accept. And just like that, Mission was with us. Wasn't really sure what Mission should do in terms of combat abilities. But I figured having her have rifles is a fun thing to do. Let her wear some heavier armor and get really good with blaster rifles. Luckily, we still had an extra combat suit and an energy shield sitting around, so we helped gear her up pretty quick. It's pretty amazing that she had survived down here for so long with such limited equipment. But I saw a glint of armor in the distance.
You there, civilian. This is a restricted area. What are you doing down here?
And I figured this was a good opportunity to maybe take out some Sith.
You're questioning the Sith. Well, I guess...
Oh, you don't have to kill many more of us to get to prove that we should respect you, because we don't respect you. At the end of the day, even Mr. Pazaak is a Republic soldier and knows my duty.
You asked for this.
But man, the Sith put up quite a fight. They all had energy shields, which made it a lot harder for everybody for Karth and Mission to punch through and deal some real damage. Even Karth, with his overcharge of his blasters, took a few shots, but eventually they took down the shields.
Time to rumble.
Sadly, I had already dropped at the time, but Mission and Karth were seeming to hold on pretty well. I take it Karth didn't like the fact that I had gone down, because he was just pounding out heavy-duty shots left and right. But the energy shields on the Sith seem to be better than anybody else's. After a quick shot of a med pack, Mission and Karth was back to throwing out blasts, apparently. But it was kind of at a stalemate. We were just kind of waiting for the Sith shields to fall. The leader had already gone down, but his two minions just weren't going anywhere. So Karth and Mission switched tactics. They were both going to throw their best fire at one Sith trooper.
Ready.
take that.
But even that wasn't really working because his shields were too strong. But then finally the shields went down. And Mission and Karth both managed to get some good shots in, and then it was down to 1v2.
Huh?
But the trooper didn't decide to run. But then even his shield finally failed, and then he went down too.
Yes?
I was a bit groggy at the time because, you know, I'd been smacked around by a few too many laser blasts. But we found some good gear on the Sith patrol. Some rifles that we could sell and some advanced med packs. So we decided to take a trip back up top because, you know, I was pretty injured at the time. But a quick trip back and we were ready to go. Decided to take the opportunity to talk to Mission about how she'd met Zaalbar, and apparently he was on terrace from Kashyyyk for some reason.
Hey,
Mission doesn't like being called a kid, but, you know, she was a kid at the time. What did she know?
he does. Yeah.
Mission mentioned that she had a brother, but she wasn't really interested in talking about him at the time. But I took this opportunity to also confront Karth about his apparent massive issues with me.
Maybe.
No, why we go?
Karth wasn't really in the mood to talk about how he didn't trust me at the time, though, but I knew he'd get around to it someday. Or at least I hoped he did. Kind of needed to work together to find Bastila still. I knew I couldn't get into the Vulkar base with just Mission. But then we ran across quite a big pack of rat ghouls, but luckily having 2 people with blasters while I was up front with the swords was a pretty effective system. I managed to dodge or deal with most of the rat ghouls so that Mission and Karth could just throw blaster fire over my shoulder at them. But then we came across a massive discovery. We found some rat ghoul serum. And I knew that right away that we needed to go back to the village and give it to those people. Gurney we'd see eventually, and I know we could give it back to him too. But I figured they should be just enough to help those 2 people in the village and then give it to Gurney as well. But then we decided to keep exploring and happened to find a few more rat ghouls. Mission for some reason decided to charge in and wasn't really doing anything. But luckily the rat ghouls weren't hitting too hard and there was quickly only one left and we dropped that one too. Sadly we did find a lot of corpses just sitting around. A lot of people had probably run out of the village to look for any kind of supplies. And it seems like not a lot of them made it back. Probably why it was so amazing that we had actually rescued Hendar for Hester and saved him. But then we came across something extra weird. We came across some frag mines. We all seemed to be scattered around something that looked like it might have been a crash zone. But who would have set up these mines? Well, the answer seemed to us to be that maybe a Republic soldier had held on for long enough here. We thought we saw someone and heard someone, but we decided to be careful, make our way through the minefield slowly so that we weren't just opening ourselves up to, you know, getting blasted by mines. But we sent Mission in. She cleared out all the mines with no real difficulty.
Yes?
Then we ran and managed to actually find a living Republic soldier.
Help.
Apparently he actually had been infected with the rat ghoul disease, but we had enough serum to help him, thankfully.
Thank you. Bastila? Over there.
But quickly the man we asked him about Bastila, apparently, who wasn't in the pod, which makes sense. He probably would have been killed. But then he chose to run off when he thought he heard a sound and got himself killed by a bunch of rat ghouls, the idiot. But then again, that left us with facing off a whole bunch of rat ghouls. Luckily, as ever, Mission and Karth were ready to provide cover and fire for me.
Down you go!
Yeah?
Mission actually got some good experience out of the event.
Sure.
But just like that, it was back to exploring the Undercity. I figured we'd take away that we'd finish exploring this whole local area of the Undercity, maybe clear out some rat ghouls for people, and then we would head back to the village. But then we saw someone we didn't expect to see down here. Canderous and a whole posse of guys apparently sent down by Davik.
Don't move.
One of the idiots in Canderous' party decided to try to threaten us, but
This is Canderous.
But quickly, as we
Over there,
before we
the
could even
shadows.
make introductions,
Sounded like a rat ghoul.
suddenly a bunch of rat ghouls were on us.
Looks like we.
They pretty quickly started tearing through the mercenaries that Canderous had with him. It seemed like most of them couldn't even take a single hit from a rat ghoul. But I threw myself in front of the line, and Canderous and his last surviving guy threw fire over my shoulder. We managed to beat him off, although I was super injured at the time.
Damn. Okay, you'd be.
But pretty quickly, Canderous and his boys and his one surviving buddy decided to make their trip back up top. Apparently, Davik had sent them down here to find out information about the Republic pods that had crashed in the Undercity, but they pretty quickly just ran afoul of a bunch of rat ghouls and decided that, hey, maybe we shouldn't stick around. It seemed like a good idea to me. Sadly, though, we were still on a mission to clear this stuff out and eventually get into the sewers in the Black Vulkar base after we'd rescued Zaalbar. But as always, we couldn't help but run across 50,000 more rat ghouls. Maybe not 50,000, but felt like there was a lot of them. Luckily, we were getting pretty good at blasting and cutting up rat ghouls at this point. And maybe a frag grenade or two here or there helped out a bit, too.
You asked for this.
The real danger is when we'd come across groups of like 5 rat ghouls. That would kind of be surrounded on all sides, but luckily they weren't too bright. But a few swipes to the sword, as always, and a few shots for Mission and Karth. But then we came across a corpse that had some weird journal. It's called the Promised Land on it. And I know that Shalina had mentioned a man named Rukal at the village who talked about something called the Promised Land all the time.
What?
So I figured maybe the journal would be of interest to him. Plus, it was on a pretty fresh-looking corpse of someone that looked like they had come from the village, not from up top, from one of the gangs. So I figured it couldn't hurt to give Rukal a heads up.
Sure.
But at that point, we had pretty much cleared everything in the Undercity that we had easy access to, so it was time to go back, talk to Rukal. Maybe there was going to be more that we could find in the sewers. And then cure those people who were still infected with the rat ghoul disease. Could have talked to Gendar at some point, but, you know, I didn't really need to know more about the village. But thankfully we were able to go back and talk to the outcasts.
Please.
We actually had serum for the 2 of them.
We should.
But thankfully we were able to help the 2 remaining people who in this rat ghoul enclosure. We shocked the hell out of the outcast healer when those 2 people walked out and said they were cured, but we took the opportunity to also talk to Rukal.
What?
Rukal took a long time telling us about how the Undercity had come to be. Basically, there had once been an uprising on Taris. And when it was defeated, the jails were too full, and they sent people to exile down here. But apparently the Promised Land is a self-sufficient colony that could take care of all their needs somewhere down here. Apparently, he was actually willing to take everyone on this journey if we found the journal of his father and grandfather that had been lost in the sewers. But somehow, Aegir heard what we were talking about. And he offered me actual money.
He caught me.
He actually said he would pay me to give him the journals that Rukal wanted to use to guide everyone to the Promised Land so he could destroy them and live out his selfish existence. Now, I love the golden game of Pazaak, but man oh man, can I not stand a scumbag like that. They give scoundrels a bad name. But just like that, it was time to finally head into the sewers. And of course, the first thing that greeted us was a nice mine. Luckily, Mission had gotten pretty good at taking care of those by now. So our objective down here was to find Zaalbar, and then start make. And then Mission said that apparently the entrance to the Vulkar base that she also knew was down here as well. So our goal was to find Zaalbar and then find this entrance to the base that apparently no one knew about. Found some rat ghouls, but eventually we actually started running across Gamorreans. I don't know what they thought they were slaving down here, but if they could survive against the rat ghouls, I guess whatever. Whatever floats their boat, you know. Except slavery, which, you know, I'm gonna kill them for.
Huh?
Kept coming across frag mines and things like that, but we actually found a nice little droid that we figured we could turn on and help us out down here.
Sure.
At the same time as that droid, though, we actually found a mauled to pieces outcast corpse. Based on the age, it seemed like it was a good bet that it was Rukel's father. But we turned on our little droid friend that was also hanging out there, this little weird claw slappy model. And it was on patrol, helping us out. But after some exploring, we actually came across... We decided to let the droid go first, you know. Maybe the Gamorreans wouldn't hit it, or they'd be confused by it, or whatever. But it pretty quickly, of course, found one room that was full of Gamorreans. We actually seemed to have stumbled across a room of elite Gamorreans. One of them even was wearing some extra garb, and if I had to guess, would be their chieftain. But thankfully, with the help of the little droid distracting some of them, I got pretty beat up, but everybody else was able to drop the Gamorreans pretty effectively. They even had a belt that wasn't way too big for us. I was pretty injured at the time, but I'd also gotten a nice little boost in experience, so I felt okay. I was getting pretty tough at this point, too. Apparently, one of the doors that Mission saw was actually unspikeable, but luckily we found Zaalbar behind it. Zaalbar at this point actually decided to swear a life debt to me, which was pretty insane. But
So, I bet I can't.
at this point, Mission chose to finally tell us that there was a Rancor guarding the entrance to the Vulkar base, but, you know, whatever.
Okay.
But now that Zaalbar was with us, we couldn't really be conspicuous with 3 people and me wandering around. And since we needed Mission, it was time to decide if Zaalbar was going to come with us or Karth. And after thinking about it for a second, we decided that a walking carpet would be a bit of a noticeable target and a bit memorable. The blue Twi'lek is a bit more common than a big Wookiee, so we thought we'd bring Karth with us. So Zaalbar decided to go relax and recover from his wounds suffered at the Gamorrean's hands and get a meal up in the upper city apartment. After investigating his cell, it looked like the Gamorreans had just smashed one door until,
No problem.
you know, Zaalbar couldn't get out of it. Found a sick... as soon as Zaalbar left, though, we found a case with his bowcaster, which was great, and 2 Gamorreans that had apparently been torn to pieces by our droid while we were talking to Zaalbar. But anything to make our lives easier. Found some really clever Rakghouls that were hanging out by a mine. But luckily, I wasn't stupid enough to run through the thing. So once the Rakghouls came through the mine, somehow not setting it off, we were able to deal with them, and Mission took care of the mine for us.
What?
It seems like the Gamorreans might have set up that mine so that the Rakghouls couldn't get to them, but they seemed to run through it no problem, so who the heck knows what was going on. But just like that, we were back to exploring the sewers and looking for Mission's entrance to the Vulkar base. Of course, we kept running across mountains of Rakghouls down there. Love to infect me with stuff. But at this point, we had the Rakghoul serum, so being threatened by the disease wasn't a huge problem. Thankfully, the sewers, while kind of a maze, weren't so huge that we were having tons and tons of trouble finding anything. But we kept coming across mines that the Gamorreans had set up.
What?
as well as a few more Gamorreans and some rat ghouls just everywhere, always with rat ghouls. Really explained why everyone was so threatened by this. If these rat ghouls ever started making their way into the upper city or even the lower city, which apparently they did sometimes, I could imagine them being a fairly large problem. Luckily, we found a loop pretty early on where we'd cut off this whole, we'd finished exploring this whole area of the sewers. Seems like one Gamorrean, though, had missed the memo about us attacking the actual base, and unfortunately for him, the three of us caught him out alone. Put up a fight, but, you know, being one Gamorrean after we'd taken out his chieftain probably meant that he was not quite up to the task. But we then found another cluster of Gamorreans who he'd apparently just left, probably heading back to base from meeting up with them, but none of them were the elites or anything like that, so they weren't quite too challenging.
How'd you like that?
Most of them just kind of stood there stupidly while I skewered them with my swords. It also helps to, you know, not have to just wield a giant, dumb, slow battle axe like the Gamorreans do all the time. When we got pretty deep into the sewers, I thought I heard a weird spot.
Whoever steps on this will get
I thought I heard a door where there was some strange noises behind it, so I decided to have the brilliant idea to set up some mines of our own for once. Lo and behold, there were some rat ghouls hiding behind the door, who did a nice job of blowing themselves up on my mines. Made our jobs quite a lot easier. And at the same time, we found an incredibly rotted old corpse. And it had another journal labeled Promised Land on it. I figured, hey, this must be Rukel's grandfather. This looks like this has been here a long time. But we had all three journals Rukel mentioned, so it seemed like it was time to head back upstairs. Right next door, though, we found a bunch of Gamorreans who looked like they were wearing weird gear. Like some kind of raiding gear. I don't know where they were raiding to, but one of them had a weird blue shirt on. Seems like he was the leader of them all, but we took them all out pretty darn quick. The important find, though, was a ladder that we used to get back up to the Undercity. Seems the rat ghouls had also done some repopulating in the meantime, so we were able to, you know, help everybody out. I accidentally popped an antidote kit just to be safe before the fight. But then we decided to move in and take out these fresh rat ghouls. Anything to keep the Undercity clear, especially now that we found Rukel's journals. It seemed reasonable to assume that he might live up to his promise of taking everybody out of there. And we wanted to give them the best shot possible they had for finding their promised land, wherever the hell that might be. But before they left, it seemed like a good idea to check with Aegir in case maybe we wanted to buy anything from him. And go talk to the healer one final time.
Huh?
Mission had actually been smacked around by a rat ghoul and wasn't feeling super hot.
Uh-huh. Sure.
Hey there, Upworld.
And Aegir had a few computer spikes on him and stuff like that, but nothing too incredibly useful. He had some beautiful Achani battle armor, but it was so much money, we were never going to be able to afford it. We still couldn't even afford the other blaster he already had on him. But at this point, we'd collected quite a few blaster rifles, so we figured we'd sell them to him, and worst comes to worst, when they moved out, Gendar might easily just break into his stash and make him give them to people. So, you know, seemed like a fair trade. We were really pretty rolling in credits by this time. We were almost at 1,000 credits, but nothing Aegir was selling seemed really worth it. But we had 2 quick stops to make before we talked to Rukel and got everybody out of here.
You amazed.
Got some good old healing from the outcast healer. And then we popped over to talk to Gendar.
Greetings. No offense, but why?
But Gendar didn't seem to really have anything interesting to say. He seemed kind of just the slow, methodical leader. But we all found all 3 journals and gave them to Rukel. And with a quick step over to Gendar's hut, but with that, Gendar was convinced from the evidence of the 3 Promised Land journals, and after rounding up their supplies, raiding Aegir's stash, dragging him along with them as he cried about how he wanted to earn money, that was it. They were off. The whole village was empty. The gate was just left open. I'm sure in time the rat ghouls would start infesting the village, and anyone who took the elevator down would be in a bit of trouble. But more importantly, the outcast village was no more. Unless the Terizians wanted to just straight up start executions by sending individual criminals down here. It seemed like their best bet was just to close the thing down.
Yeah.
But we took this time to talk to Karth, who still couldn't get over his issues that he had with us.
Hey there.
We also took the chance to talk to his mission about her brother, who, from the sound of it, wasn't a great guy.
Yeah, hey, you don't know what it's like. You need those skills here in the...
Apparently her brother name was Griff, and apparently he took off with a woman named Lena.
Okay. Hey, Karth. You're a pilot for the Republic, right? You've been all over the galaxy, I bet, right? So tell me, how would you rate Taurus compared to other worlds you've seen?
To be honest, Mission, Terrace would rate pretty low. The prejudice, the rich spoiling themselves while the poor are crushed beneath them, it's not a pretty picture.
Yeah, but that's only since the Sith occupation. Before that, well, I guess it wasn't all that different, really. Maybe Taurus ain't as great as I thought, you know?
My mission thought
Trust
Taurus
me,
was
Mission,
great,
there
I
are
don't
A lot
know.
of worlds better than Terrace. There are worse, too, but Terrace is no place for a kid to live on her own. Even a kid who's got a Wookiee to look out for.
Hey, I ain't no kid. I look out for Zaalbar as much as he looks out for me. Big C's my friend, not my babysitter. Geez, I come ask you a question, you give me a lecture.
Don't you snap at me, Missy. You want a lecture? How's this? Only bratty little children fly off the handle because of a simple comment.
Not wrong. But at this point, they were both having an argument that I didn't really want to listen to anymore, so I made them stop. We had a job to do anyway. But it was funny that they were flying at each other's throats that quickly. Funny in a, oh god, please, I need you guys' help, don't do this right now kind of way. Man, it's like we leave and then 5 minutes later 1,000 more rat ghouls just show up. We had cleared the area just a few minutes before, and all of a sudden, boom, more rat ghouls. Well, luckily they got out of our way pretty quick. We had to be more careful though, because there was no healer waiting for us back in the village. Thankfully, though, once we dealt with the Black Vulkars, the hope was that we wouldn't have to come back down here at all anymore. Once we got back up into the lower city. But at this point, we had pretty much mapped out all the sewers, and we found this massive purple shield. Apparently, this is what mission was meant.
You got.
You won't be able to get that.
Luckily, Mission had pickpocketed the shield's codes, for some reason, off of Vulkar. But the weird thing is, even after we got through the shields, almost immediately we started coming across Gamorreans and rat ghouls fighting, who apparently decided to stop fighting, you know, just to fight us. But both sides fell to our weaponry pretty quickly. Weird thing, though, is that the Vulkars had thrown that shield up, but it's not like they were going to just let the slavers through for no reason. So either the slavers were getting a cut, or they knew another way in that I didn't. But either way, inconsequential. Thankfully for us, a lot of the sewers had, even though they had multiple doors, a lot of the places were led to dead ends.
What?
Alright, well, the important thing is that we kept marching through the sewers. Our goal, like I said, was the Black Vulkar base. Thankfully, even though there were still, you know, plenty of Gamorreans, plenty of Rakghouls, none of them were really up to stopping us. We were pretty alone down here. We're pretty far from any assistance that the Becks might have provided in the lower cities, so we had to be real careful in these sewers. We actually found a crazy malfunctioning droid. It seemed to be shockingly strong. No idea what it was for. It had this blaster mounted underneath that was just shockingly deadly. And it was pretty resistant to my swords and Karth's blasters, but oh well, we dealt with it and we moved on. But it was also a nice change of pace, you know?
What?
Just kept coming across mines, kept coming across paths leading down. Thought about asking Mission how far exactly we had to go down to find this stupid Vulkar base, but she'd probably just offer some snarky answer. And I just wanted to focus on cutting our way through more and more Gamorreans. We found what seemed like another raiding party, but they were just standing in a dead-end hallway standing over a burnt corpse. No idea what they thought they were raiding to this day, but oh well. They paid the price either way for being Gamorrean slavers.
Hey, Car.
Are you ready to have a
Tantrum?
Yeah, I know. Mission?
You really mean?
What's no?
Kids are like.
Karth and Mission decided to make up after a little bit in the sewers. Thankfully, they had good timing because we were about to find the Rancor. Luckily, we had found a journal that actually gave some... Apparently, someone had synthesized an odor to try to deal with the Rancor. It seemed like the Becks had been trying to sneak into this base this way for a while. But apparently, the trick was to try to get the Rancor to eat something. But with a little application of death by frag grenade, we threw this weird odor into this pile of bodies along with a frag tied to it, and let the Rancor do its thing. And just like that, we had taken ourselves out a Rancor. Sadly, it didn't seem like it had eaten much of value. We decided to cut it open anyway, but nope. Nothing was hidden inside. We weren't dealing with a crate dragon, although it was just as annoying to kill. And like that, we found a room with 2 Vulkar guards sitting in it. And we figured, we have arrived. And just like that, we cut down both Vulkar guards. Seems weird that they were guarding where the Rancor was. You'd think they just set up a camera or something, but apparently they wanted actual guys on hand in case something happened with the Rancor. But I think we're in a good place to stop our story for today. We just entered the Vulkar base, and things start getting real interesting on Taris after this. So until next time you come listen to my story, thank you very much for listening. My name is Mr. Pazaak. And come back soon, bring some cards, would you?